In this lecture, we are going to inject the REST URL to the front end. The URL to our endpoint should not be hard-coded. We should let WordPress generate a URL to our endpoint. By doing so, our registration form should be compatible with any URL structure. There's just one problem. We're using JavaScript to submit the form. We don't have access to WordPress's PHP functions for generating a full URL. As usual, WordPress has a solution for addressing this issue. We can inject an inline script into the document. Dynamic scripts can be created with JavaScript. Let's give it a try. Inside your editor, open the index.php plugin file. The scripts should not be injected prematurely. Let's use the correct action hook for adding scripts to the document. At the bottom of the hooks section, add the add action function. The name of the hook is called WP-enqueue scripts. This hook is called during the enqueue process for our scripts. WordPress recommends this hook for dynamic scripts. The name of our function will be called up-enqueue scripts. Inside the includes folder, create a new directory called front. Files related to the front end will be created in this directory. Let's create a new file called enqueue.php. Define the up-enqueue scripts function. First, let's create a variable for storing the URLs to our custom endpoint. Inside the function, define a variable called auth_URLs. The value for this variable will be an array. Even though we have a single endpoint, we're accounting for the next endpoint for authentication. After finishing the registration form, we're going to work on the login form. Inside this array, add a key called signup. The value for this key will be the REST URL function. This function will return a URL to WordPress's REST API. We can append an endpoint to the URL by passing in a string. The path for our custom endpoint is the following: up/v1/signup. For extra security, we should wrap this function with a function called escapeURL_raw. This function will escape a URL. Unfortunately, the REST URL function will not escape the URL. For this reason, I highly recommend wrapping the values returned by this function with the escapeURL_raw function. After creating the array, we are going to wrap the array with the JSON encode function. The variable we've created is written with PHP. However, this information needs to be accessible with JavaScript. As we've learned, JSON is heavily inspired by JavaScript. A JSON object is compatible with a JavaScript object. Fortunately, PHP has a function for converting a variable's value into a JSON-compatible object called JSON encode. This function will return a string, which contains a JSON object. The next step is to create a variable for JavaScript with PHP. The variable's value should be set to this string. WordPress has a function for injecting an inline script into the document. It's called WP Inline Scripts. There are 3 arguments for this function. The first argument is the handle of a script. By itself, the inline script is not automatically added to the document. The inline script will be added as a dependency to another script. In our case, this script should be a dependency for the frontend.js file for the authentication modal block. Here's the problem. The script is enqueued by WordPress. We're not manually enqueuing this file. Therefore, we don't have control over the handle name. To get the handle name, we must look at the front end. In the browser, open the elements for the developer tools. Make sure you're viewing the experimental page. Let's search for the frontend.js file. The handle name for a script will be added as the ID to the scripts tag. Looking closely, The ID of our script is the following: Udemy plus auth modal script JS. By using this handle, we can add the inline script whenever the frontend.js file has been added to the document. Head back to the editor. Inside the first argument of the WP inline script function, pass in the following ID: Udemy plus auth modal script. The JS portion of the ID can be excluded. WordPress adds JS to the ID to identify the element as a script. However, it's not officially part of the handle. By adding the handle, WordPress will add this inline script whenever the frontend.js file has been added. The next argument is the JavaScript code. Pass in the following: const up auth rest equals auth URLs. These script tags can be excluded. WordPress will wrap your code with them. Inside our script, we are defining a global variable with our URLs. The last argument for our function is the placement of the script. We can add the script before or after the handle. In this case, we are going to add the script before the handle. Otherwise, our script may not have access to the variables. Our variables should be defined first. If you're interested in adding the script after the handle script, we can set this argument to after. After adding this information, let's refresh the page. Switch over to the console panel. Inside the console, log the up auth rest variable. As you can see, our variable contains an object with our URLs. We've successfully injected the URLs into our document. The next step is to send the registration form data to this URL. In the next lecture, we are going to finalize the registration form.